For nearly 50 years, the world lived in a silent nightmare. A war that never looked like a war. A conflict with no armies clashing, no tanks moving, no bombs falling, yet somehow more dangerous than all world wars combined. Imagine waking up every day knowing that one wrong decision, one misunderstood message, one nervous general could end human civilization in minutes. This was the Cold War. Not cold because it was peaceful, but cold because, if it ever became hot, the world would not survive to tell the story. In this video, you will finally understand what the Cold War really was, not the boring textbook version. Why it was called cold, how two countries became enemies without ever firing at each other, what nuclear brinksmanship means, and why it nearly killed us, what MAD stands for, and why it might be the most terrifying peace strategy ever invented, how a tiny island like Cuba almost triggered World War III, how the race for space became a race for survival, and how this silent war changed our modern world forever. Stay until the end, and you'll walk away saying, "Wow, I never knew that about the Cold War."
Let's clear up the biggest misunderstanding first. Why is it called a Cold War? Simple. A hot war means tanks rolling, bombs dropping, soldiers fighting. A Cold War means none of that happens. It's like two people who absolutely hate each other, but instead of punching, they compete by buying bigger houses, louder cars, and posting passive-aggressive quotes on Facebook. The US and the Soviet Union didn't fight directly. Instead, they fought indirectly through economic pressure, political influence, spying, technology, proxy wars, meaning fighting through other countries, and, of course, the ultimate game of nuclear chicken. At the end of World War II, the US and the Soviet Union found themselves in a strange situation. They were allies only because they had a common enemy, Nazi Germany. But once the war ended, that friendship disappeared faster than a Wi-Fi signal in a basement. Two superpowers remained, both incredibly strong, both convinced they were right, both terrified the other would take over the world. The US believed in capitalistic democracy, elections, free markets, burger joints on every corner. The Soviets believed in communism, government control, planned economy, and long breadlines. They didn't just disagree. They fundamentally could not trust each other. Historians call this an ideological conflict, which means two sides see the world so differently that cooperation becomes nearly impossible.
Toward the late 1940s, something terrifying happened. The Soviet Union successfully tested its first atomic bomb. This shocked the United States. Many American leaders believed only the US would have nuclear weapons for decades. Spoiler alert, they were wrong. And once both sides had nuclear weapons, a deadly race began. Not a race to build armies, but a race to build weapons powerful enough to erase entire cities, entire nations, entire civilizations. This became the arms race. Each side kept building bigger bombs, faster missiles, stealthier submarines, and aircraft that could fly across the world without landing. It was the most dangerous competition in human history. Then came one of the most frightening ideas ever invented by military strategists, MAD, mutually assured destruction, meaning, if you launch your nukes, we launch ours. And if we launch ours, you launch yours. In the end, everyone loses. MAD was a strategy built on fear, a balance of terror that kept both sides frozen. No one wanted to start a nuclear war because no one could survive it.
When both superpowers got tired of building bigger and bigger bombs, they looked up at the sky. And suddenly, the Cold War moved into space. The Soviet Union struck first. In 1957, they launched Sputnik 1, a tiny metal sphere, just beeping and orbiting the Earth. But that little beep-beep terrified the United States. Americans stared at the sky wondering, is it spying on us? Is it watching our backyard? Is it sending messages? Nobody really knew. But one thing was clear, the Soviets were ahead. Then came the next shock, Yuri Gagarin, the first human in space. He looked down at Earth and said, "It is beautiful." The US heard that and said, "Beautiful? Great! Now let's win something." NASA responded with one of the most ambitious projects in human history, the Apollo program. And on July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong stepped onto the moon. A small step for man, a giant leap for mankind, and an even bigger leap for American pride. The space race wasn't just about science. It was a message to the world. Whichever nation reaches higher rules the future.
If you think spy movies are wild, real Cold War spies were 10 times crazier. The entire world became a giant chessboard, except the pieces were not knights or queens, but double agents, coded messages, and briefcases designed to explode ink. Here are a few unbelievable, yet completely true stories. First, the CIA once tried to use cats as spies. Yes, cats. The plan was to hide microphones inside them. But there was one major problem. Cats don't listen to anyone. Millions of dollars were spent, and the cats simply walked away. Next, the Soviets built a fake rock with a secret radio transmitter inside. Agents would walk past it, drop off a message, and another spy would collect it later. People had picnics next to this rock, never knowing it was doing more work than they were. Another story. The U.S. Embassy in Moscow once discovered hidden microphones inside their wooden chairs. Imagine sitting down and the chair knows more about your life than your therapist. Then there's Aldrich Ames, a CIA officer who secretly worked for the Soviet Union for nearly a decade. He revealed so many American secrets that investigators described the damage as catastrophic. But the Soviets had their own problem. A KGB colonel named Oleg Gordievsky, who secretly worked for the British. He escaped the Soviet Union inside the trunk of a car. Spy life wasn't glamorous. It was dangerous, exhausting, and unbelievably risky. But without these spies, the Cold War would have been far more dangerous.
Now we reach the most dangerous moment of the Cold War. The moment when the world came closer to nuclear war than ever before. The year was 1962. The Soviet Union secretly placed nuclear missiles in Cuba, a small island just 90 miles from Florida. To understand how close that is, that's shorter than many people's daily commute to work. When American spy planes photographed the missile sites, the U.S. government went into full emergency mode. This wasn't just, they're ahead of us. This was,
They could hit Washington in 5 minutes. President John F. Kennedy addressed the nation, speaking calmly, but with unmistakable tension beneath every word. For 13 days, the world froze. Every hour felt like a countdown. American warships surrounded Cuba. Soviet submarines aimed torpedoes at U.S. vessels. Fighter jets were on alert. Command centers didn't sleep. People worldwide held their breath. At one point, a Soviet submarine commander believed war had already begun and prepared to launch a nuclear torpedo. But one man stopped him, Vasily Arkhipov. He refused to authorize the launch. His quiet decision may have saved the entire world. Most people don't even know his name, yet they owe him their lives. Finally, on day 13, through back-channel diplomacy, both sides agreed to pull back. The Soviets removed their missiles from Cuba. The U.S. quietly removed its missiles from Turkey. Both sides claimed victory, but deep down, they knew how close the world had come to total destruction.
While armies prepared for war, governments prepared for something just as powerful: control of the mind. Both the United States and the Soviet Union launched massive propaganda campaigns. Movies, posters, radio shows, newspapers, all carefully crafted to deliver one message: we are the heroes, they are the villains. In the United States, school children practiced hiding under their desks during nuclear attack drills. Of course, a wooden desk wouldn't help much in a nuclear explosion, but it did help people feel like they had some control. Meanwhile, in the Soviet Union, citizens were taught that Americans were greedy, dangerous capitalists trying to dominate the entire world. Fear became a tool, information became a weapon, and truth, well, it became whatever each side needed it to be. This wasn't just a military standoff. It was a psychological chess game with millions of minds as the pieces.
After decades of tension, fear, and silent competition, the world finally began to change. A new Soviet leader, Mikhail Gorbachev, rose to power. He introduced ideas no one expected from the USSR: glasnost, openness, and perestroika, reform. For the first time, people inside the Soviet Union could question their government and be heard. Economies shifted, alliances shifted, and slowly the iron walls between East and West began to crack. In 1989, the Berlin Wall, the most famous symbol of Cold War division, fell to the ground as thousands of people rushed through the streets, crying, celebrating, and breaking the wall piece by piece with their bare hands. It was more than a political moment. It was a human moment. 2 years later, the Soviet Union dissolved, and just like that, the Cold War ended. Not with an explosion, but with a quiet collapse. But here's the truth. The Cold War never really left us. Its technology shaped our modern world. Its alliances still define global politics. Its lessons warn us how close humanity once came to destroying itself. And yet, it also teaches us something powerful, that even in the darkest moments, peace is possible, dialogue is possible, understanding is possible. History is not just a story of conflict. It's a reminder that what we choose today can shape the world tomorrow. Thank you for watching.
If you learned something new, if even one moment made you say, "Wow, I never knew that," then this journey through the Cold War was worth it.